Hello YouTube, Amber Honey Raven, the Big Fat Witch. How are you? I am filming a couple of videos tonight, so if you see this pride shirt in a few videos, it's not because I wear it every day, okay? I just wear it like every other day, and then I wash it. So we're going to do a book review. You guys know that I'm a huge lover and studier and practitioner of hoodoo. So I'm all about new books from practitioners who have grown up in the tradition or have studied the tradition extensively. So this one I have for you is called Working Conjure, A Guide to Hoodoo Folk Magic. And it is by Hoodoo Sen Moise. This is the cover. This is published by Red Wheel. You guys, Red Wheel puts out some amazing books. I will put a link to this book in the down bar. It is available on Amazon and it's not expensive. So I have some notes in here. You guys know that as I read a book, I often will put these little tabs in here. I use my highlighter. I go through and notate, not just for the purposes of doing book reviews, but because there are things in it that I want to come back to, or things that, you know, things that I find amazing. So let me tell you a little bit about Hoodoo Sen Moise. This is the one thing that I really appreciated about this. Well, not the one thing. It's one of the things I really appreciated about this book. Hoodoo Sen Moise learned Conjure and Hoodoo as a child from his family. So this is a family tradition. He's initiated practitioner of several different African diaspora traditions, and he teaches throughout the United States. He lives in New Orleans, and he is co-owner of Conjure New Orleans. So if you've ever been to that shop, you will know that it's fabulous. Okay, so check it out. I want to say first and foremost, this is a fantastic book. If you are a person who has read extensively on what hoodoo is, terms that are used in hoodoo, there will be about a quarter of this book that will be repetitive to you. But I would highly recommend that you still read those sections, because he does present this information in ways that I haven't really seen. He talks about what he learned from his family. And so I think even if you've read books that talk about High John root and they all tell you what High John root is used for and where to find it, I still think that it's interesting and informative to read when someone has grown up in hoodoo tradition and they say, hey, here's what my family used High John for, or here's maybe a little tidbit that you haven't heard about it. Still read it. So he does go through in the first section of this book the things that you would expect. What is Conjure? What is hoodoo? You know, it's an introduction, and you'll find that in every good, well-rounded hoodoo book. I will say that this book really focused, and it was another thing that I really appreciated, it really focused on balance. He preached the value of balance through this entire book. And that's one thing that I think has drawn me to hoodoo over and over again. I find practitioners of hoodoo to be very focused on maintaining a karmic, psychic, spiritual balance. I know that other belief systems believe in balance as well, but this particular book, over and over again, he gave example after example of ways that you are supposed to maintain balance with different workings, and I really appreciated it. I will also say that this book, more than some others that I have read, he clearly is very well studied with the history of hoodoo. So for instance, this little passage, he talks about the working side of Conjure and how it's greatly influenced by the religious beliefs of the Congo region. He talks about how people of the Congo believe that spirits reside inside of trees and leaves and roots and earth, and they hold the power to facilitate change. And that became an important staple of the fabric of what we know of Conjure today. I appreciated that Hoodoo Sen Moise really knew his roots. You know, he didn't just come in and go, yeah, hoodoo's out of New Orleans and here's what it is. He went all the way back. He went all the way back to the Congo. I appreciated, you know, he talked about how in the enslaved Congolese were transported to the Americas and they couldn't make Nikisi statues. I've showed you guys Nikisi. I'm probably mispronouncing that, so you can correct me. The little dolls. They didn't have the material. He tells you why they couldn't have them. They didn't have the materials to make them, and the appearance of the statues made them visible, and they brought repercussions. He really kind of gets deep into the diaspora. He gets deep into how this tradition, this belief system was affected by the political climate, by the enslavement of these people, by the religious climate. He really talks about how this particular belief system has been affected and has also affected. So very well-rounded. He does have a chapter in here on the principles of Conjure. Again, a lot of this you will recognize if you've read up on hoodoo extensively. He has a fabulous chapter about the foundation laid before us in hoodoo, and a chapter on ancestors and the importance of knowing the ancestors. And he has a wonderful passage in here talking about how important it is for us to honor the blood and the sweat and the force from our ancestors that was put into this belief system, this tradition. People died for this. And he does a fantastic job of reminding us that we must be in service to those ancestors while practicing or studying this belief system. So I feel his reverence in this book. I feel his reverence, and I appreciate it. It's not that I haven't felt reverence in other hoodoo books that I've read, but this one in particular is just gets right to the core. He does give you a lot of recipes in this book. For instance, there's a cleansing bath to clear away blocks. He does pull up, and this is something that I have not seen in a lot of hoodoo books. He does give you the specific Bible passages that a lot of the traditions or the conjure comes from. So if you're offended by reading Bible passages, which you shouldn't be offended if you're studying hoodoo, because as you know, Bible passages are part of the foundation of hoodoo. And if you want to know why, it is in this book. He talks about the mojo hand. He talks about the importance of dirt and crossroads and water and everything that you would expect. But then there's an entire chapter on the balance that is required for working conjure. I'm going to read a little tiny passage. He talks about how a lot of practitioners herald the principle that we should do no harm, and that we hear the terms black magic and white magic thrown around as if to define the work by color or that which is generally accepted as being good or evil. He says you need to remember that what one culture considers to be morally acceptable or good may not be considered the same in another culture. And he goes into talking about balance and the ways in which nature attempts balance, the ways in which we must attempt balance when we practice. He reminds us that just as nature has the power to destroy or create, we do too. So it is he's very connected to the earth spirits. And again, I think that's where I'm reading his reverence. You can feel his spirituality. He talks about the right and left hand of conjure. There is a right and a left hand of conjure. He talks about holy places. He talks about conjuring in the graveyard. This is sometimes can be a little bit of a controversial subject for people who are watching, because some people in the witchy community do not believe that we should be entering graveyards for any reason, because they see it as a place of rest. They believe that the dirt, the water, the leaves, everything that's found in the graveyard should be left there, that we shouldn't be buying dirt from graves, and that we should not be contacting spirits while they're at rest. This book talks about why conjuring in the graveyard is such a tenement of hoodoo. He talks about the principles of the graveyard and how they're highly connected with the relationship between the worker and the spirits. And he gives us the Bible chapter, Ezekiel 37, 1 through 14, where the Bible talks about graveyard and bodies and connecting spiritually with them. He does acknowledge that people have differing opinions about the cemetery, and that some say, he says right here, some say it's a place of rest, some say it's a place of work, and others say that it's communion with the dead. He said he agrees with all of those opinions, and he goes into a chapter about how to honor coming in and out of the graveyard and making a relationship with the spirits there, and how important it is to cleanse yourself after you leave. He talks about you know, how the graveyard is a place of power, how you can find prosperity in the graveyard, how to leave an enemy in the graveyard. And again, lots and lots of Bible passages. I will say that this is probably the most balanced book on hoodoo that I've ever read. He does a fantastic job of saying, yeah, the graveyard is not for everyone. Yeah, there is a right and a left-hand path in hoodoo. Yeah, it's not all puppies and kitties. He does give you lots and lots of recipes, but he also acknowledges, you know, everybody does it differently. I really love, I've never met Hoodoo Sin Moise, but he seems like a very humble spiritual man. I have a lot of respect for him, even from afar, because I love his book. I love the way he writes. I will also say that the writing in this book is very accessible. It is not boring. It is very informative. And he doesn't talk over your head, and he doesn't talk down to you. He gives you the information. He says, you may already know this in a couple of places, but here's what I know. And he gives you some amazing recipes. I just passed a recipe called the rotting tongue. And if you have never heard of that, I haven't found this in a lot of hoodoo books. He talks about the work of the rotting tongue and how it's meant to shut the mouth of your enemy. It can also be used to bring harm. He said a lot of folks shy away from that side of the coin, but, you know, he said it has its place just like blessing or healing. He gives you the recipe for it. His recipes are all very, very easy. There's not a lot of crazy, you know, recipes, or not a lot of crazy ingredients. I will tell you, he gives you examples if there is an ingredient where you may go, I don't even know what. Like, for instance, this one has a beef tongue in it, a cow's tongue. He says you can get it from a butcher or a supermarket. So, you know, you don't have to guess on some of this. You don't have to Google. He tells you, hey, you can actually get it here. He gives you the idea of where to get it. There's a domination bath in here. There's hot foot powder. His recipe is really, really old school. Really old school. I think you'd be very happy with this. He does have a glossary in the back to kind of help you with some of your terms. I think most of you guys are going to recognize, but I will say this. There's some new information in this book. This particular book, above most of the ones I've read, again, is very balanced. It's very well written. It's very reverent. It is truly a guide to working the conjure. It is not just about his experience in hoodoo and how he grew up and telling you what he did in his family. It is, okay, if you're serious about this practice, here are some tips and tricks. Here are some ingredients. Here are some things to think about. Fantastic book. Highly recommended. So if you're looking for a new hoodoo, this is it. Check my link in the down bar. I hope you enjoyed this review. I've got several other books that I need to review. We're going to review The Naked Witch at some point. I haven't started reading this one, but this is that one by Fiona Horn that I told you guys about. I've been flipping through it, and yeah, Lord, I can't wait to review this one, y'all. Oh, Lord help me. We'll see. Anyway, I love you all. Until next time, huge blessings to you. Happy month of September. And yeah, Samhain is coming. Woo. Love you all. Bye-bye.